As Lisa walked away, Robert sat for a while longer. His phone buzzed, a message from his support group friend reminding him about dinner plans. Life went on. Different than before, but maybe that was okay. The sun was setting as he finally stood up. Tomorrow, he'd go back to work, help more people protect themselves from scams, live his life. But today, watching the last rays of sunlight paint the courthouse golden, he felt at peace. Sometimes the deepest wounds teach the most important lessons. About love. About trust. About forgiveness, not just of others, but of yourself. And sometimes, the hardest endings make way for the most honest beginnings. Robert smiled, turned up his collar against the autumn breeze, and walked home. 1 year later, Robert stood in the courthouse hallway, straightening his tie. The sentencing hearing was about to begin. Through the big windows, autumn leaves danced in the wind. So much had changed since that night at the hotel. The fake Andrews trial had made headlines. 12 victims, 6 states, millions of dollars stolen. The evidence Lisa provided had helped prosecutors uncover even more cases, some going back 10 years. Ready for this? Detective Chen appeared beside him, coffee in hand. She'd been promoted after the case, but still checked in regularly. Lisa's already inside. Her testimony really sealed the deal. Robert nodded, taking a deep breath. He hadn't seen Lisa since the preliminary hearings. Last he'd heard, she'd been working with the fraud department, helping other victims of romance scams, trying to make amends in whatever way she could. The courtroom was packed. The fake Andrew sat at the defendant's table, wearing an orange jumpsuit instead of his expensive suits. His smooth charm had completely vanished, replaced by dark circles under his eyes and nervous twitches. Lisa sat in the witness section, her hair back to its natural color. Her parents were beside her. They'd stuck by her through everything, even selling their house to help repay some of the victims. Love meant different things to different people, Robert had learned. The judge entered, and everyone stood. In the matter of multiple counts of fraud, identity theft, and financial exploitation, Robert's mind drifted to the past year. The divorce had been finalized months ago. The joint accounts were closed, the house sold. He'd moved to a smaller apartment, started fresh. Some nights were still hard, but mostly he felt lighter, free. The victim impact statements began. One by one, people stood to tell their stories. A retired teacher who lost her pension. A young couple whose dream of opening a restaurant was destroyed. Each story made the fake Andrew shrink smaller in his chair. Then Lisa stood up. Her voice shook at first but grew stronger as she spoke. I'm here both as a victim and as someone who helped cause victims. I fell for a lie, then helped spread those lies to others. I can never fully fix what I did, but I can try to prevent it from happening to more people. She talked about the warning signs she'd ignored, the red flags she'd dismissed, the way a skilled con artist could turn someone's trust and love into weapons against them. When she finished, several people in the courtroom were wiping away tears. The judge's sentence came down hard. 25 years, no possibility of early release. As they led the fake Andrew away, he tried one last charming smile. Nobody smiled back. Outside the courthouse, reporters gathered with their cameras. Robert slipped away quietly, walking through the park across the street. He sat on a bench, watching pigeons peck at breadcrumbs. Mind if I join you? It was Lisa. She looked different, older maybe, or just wiser. She sat on the far end of the bench. I heard you're working with the fraud prevention team now, Robert said. She nodded. 3 days a week. I talk to people who've been scammed, help them see they're not alone. The other days, I'm doing community service. Still have 8 months of that left. They sat in silence for a while, watching leaves fall. I got a letter from Jenny last week, Lisa said quietly. Her kids started college after all. The community raised funds when they heard what happened. Sometimes people can surprise you with kindness even after you've put them. Robert thought about his own journey, the support group he'd joined for fraud victims, the new friends he'd made, the promotion at work that came after his board presentation, the one that had seemed so important a year ago. Do you ever wonder? Lisa started, then stopped. If things had been different? Robert finished. Sometimes, but we can't change the past. We can only learn from it. A young couple walked past, holding hands, lost in their own world. Robert remembered feeling that way once. But real love, he'd learned, wasn't about grand gestures or perfect moments. It was about truth, about choosing what's right, even when it hurts. "I'm moving next month," Lisa said. "Fresh start in a new city. Going to keep working with fraud victims there too." She stood up, adjusting her jacket. "I know it doesn't fix anything, but I really am sorry, Robert, for everything." He nodded, still watching the falling leaves. "I know." The fake Andrew had somehow slipped his cuffs. He was running down the hallway, shoving past officers. For a split second, he locked eyes with Robert through the window. In that moment, Robert saw what Lisa had fallen for: the absolute confidence, the feeling that consequences were for other people. Then reality caught up. Police tackled him just before the exit. As they led him back in tighter restraints, his mask finally cracked. The charming smile disappeared, replaced by a snarl of rage and fear. "You ruined everything," he shouted at Lisa. "We could have been rich. We could have." "Take him to holding," Detective Chen ordered. She turned to Lisa, ready to make a formal statement. Lisa looked at Robert one last time. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "not just for the money or the lies. For forgetting who I really was. For becoming someone who could hurt people like this." Robert stood up. His part in this story was ending. Tomorrow would bring lawyers, divorce papers, court dates. But tonight, watching Lisa prepare to tell the whole truth at last, he felt something close to peace. Sometimes love means letting go. Sometimes justice means making sure the truth comes out, no matter how much it hurts. And sometimes the biggest con isn't about money at all. It's about what we tell ourselves when we choose the easy lie over the hard truth. The police station buzzed with activity even at this late hour. Robert sat in Detective Chen's office, watching through the window as officers led the fake Andrew to an interrogation room. The man's smooth confidence was gone now, replaced by nervous glances and fidgeting hands. "We found something interesting in his hotel room," Detective Chen said, placing a laptop on her desk. "He kept records, detailed ones. Every con, every victim, every dollar." She turned the screen toward Robert. "Your wife wasn't just another target. She was helping him find new ones." The evidence was right there in spreadsheets and emails. Lisa had been reaching out to old classmates, arranging chance meetings with the fake Andrew. Each column showed amounts taken, dates, methods used. Some names Robert recognized, friends who'd suddenly invested in mysterious business opportunities over the past few months. "I need to talk to her," Robert said quietly. Detective Chen nodded. "She's in room 3. But remember, she's not just a victim anymore. She's an accomplice." The walk to interview room 3 felt like miles. Through the door window, Robert could see Lisa sitting alone, still in her business outfit from the hotel meeting, her dark-dyed hair falling over her face. She looked up when he entered, then quickly looked away. "Why?" It was the only word he could manage. Lisa's hands twisted in her lap. "At first, I really thought he was Andrew. He knew everything about our high school days, our favorite spots, even the song that played at prom. When he said he needed help investing his inheritance, I believed him. And later, when you knew the truth, he said it was too late to back out, that I'd already helped him, so I was just as guilty, that if I went to the police, I'd go to jail too." She wiped her eyes. "Then he started talking about my parents' retirement fund, how we could triple it, how I could make everything right." Robert placed the laptop on the table between them. "You helped him find other victims." Lisa's face crumpled. "He said they were all rich people who wouldn't miss the money, that we were just moving numbers around. I didn't want to see what we were really doing." Through the window, Robert could see Lisa's parents talking to another detective. Her father's shoulders were slumped, her mother dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. They'd nearly lost everything because their daughter had chosen pride over truth. "Your sister Katie tried to warn you," Robert said. "So did your old friend Rachel. You cut them all off." "He said they were jealous of our success, of our plans." Lisa laughed bitterly. "I was so stupid. Even when I found proof he was lying, I kept hoping there was some explanation, that I hadn't thrown away my whole life for a con man." Robert opened the laptop, turning it so she could see the spreadsheets. "These people trusted you. Some of them were your friends since childhood. Tears rolled down Lisa's cheeks as she read the names. Oh God, Jenny's kids' college fund, Mike's new house down payment. Her voice broke. I can't fix this, can I? Any of it? No, Robert said quietly, but you can help make sure he doesn't do this to anyone else. A knock at the door. Detective Chen with more files. We found offshore accounts, multiple identities. This goes deeper than we thought. She looked at Lisa. We need to know everything. Every contact, every transaction, every conversation. Lisa straightened up, wiping her eyes. I kept my own records, hidden from him. Names, dates, account numbers. I think I'd always knew this day would come. For the next 2 hours, Lisa talked about how the fake Andrew found his victims, how he used social media to research their lives, their dreams, their weaknesses, how he built elaborate lies tailored to each person's hopes. Robert listened, feeling a strange mix of sadness and relief. The woman he'd loved was still in there somewhere, the part of her that kept secret records, that hesitated before each new con, that finally chose truth over more lies. What happens now? Lisa asked when she'd finished. You'll be charged, Detective Chen said frankly. But your cooperation helps, and the fact that you kept evidence. A commotion erupted outside. Through the window, they could see officers rushing toward the interrogation room. Detective Chen's radio crackled. Subject attempting escape. Backup needed. Robert stepped back, giving them space. His part in this story was done. Now it was up to Lisa to face the consequences of her choices, to rebuild trust with her family, to find a way forward. Outside the hotel, the evening air felt clean and cool. Detective Chen approached, notepad ready. We'll need your statement, she said. And there might be others, more victims who haven't come forward yet. Robert nodded, watching more police cars arrive, their lights painting the hotel walls in red and blue. Sometimes, he realized, the biggest act of love isn't forgiveness, it's making sure the truth comes out before more people get hurt. The hotel lobby felt like another world. Soft piano music played overhead while well-dressed people walked past, none of them aware of the drama unfolding in their midst. Robert's footsteps echoed on the marble floor as he headed for the stairs, his heart pounding with each step. A text lit up his phone. Parents just left bank. Full withdrawal. Please stop them. Katie's message made his hands shake. He quickened his pace. The second floor was quieter. Signs pointed to various meeting rooms: maple, oak, pine. Robert checked the receipt from Lisa's diary again. Room Cedar, 7 p.m. A perfect place for a private investment meeting. Voices drifted from around the corner. Robert recognized Lisa's voice first, the slight tremor she got when she was nervous. Then a man's voice, smooth and confident, explaining something about offshore accounts and guaranteed returns. Robert peered around the corner. Through the partially open door, he could see Lisa sitting at a conference table, papers spread out in front of her. She looked tired, her new dark hair making her face seem paler. The fake Andrew stood at a whiteboard, drawing elaborate diagrams about money flow. Once your parents transfer the funds, the man was saying, we can triple their investment within. He stopped suddenly, looking at his phone. His charming smile vanished for a split second, replaced by something cold and calculating. Robert ducked back as the man walked to the window, phone to his ear. His whispered conversation carried through the door. Change of plans. We move tonight. Get the cart ready. Lisa's voice shook more now. Is everything okay? We should wait for my parents before making any decisions. Robert's phone vibrated. Detective Chen again. Officers 10 minutes out. Don't engage. But Robert had seen Lisa's face when the fake Andrew turned away. The fear in her eyes. The way her hands trembled as she glanced at her phone, probably seeing the same messages from Katie about their parents' life savings. He had to make a choice. The smart thing would be to wait for the police. But in 10 minutes, the fake Andrew could vanish, taking everything with him. Robert thought about Lisa's parents, about their home of 30 years, about all the other victims who'd lost everything to this man. Taking a deep breath, Robert walked into the room. The fake Andrew's reaction was instant, a flash of surprise quickly masked by a welcoming smile. Ah, you must be the other investor. Please, join us. Stop lying. Robert's voice was calmer than he felt. It's over. I know everything. Lisa jumped up, her face a mix of shock and something else. Relief? Robert? What are you? Your parents are on their way here with their life savings, Robert said, looking straight at Lisa. Is that what you want? For them to lose everything because of him? The fake Andrew's smile didn't waver, but his eyes turned cold. Lisa dear, who is this person? Security should really. Show her your real passport, Robert cut in. The one with your real name. Or should I tell her about the other women? The ones who lost everything. The one who… Robert? Lisa's voice cracked. She was looking at her phone, probably seeing the photos Detective Chen had sent, the evidence of other cons, other victims. The fake Andrew moved with surprising speed. His hand darted into his jacket, but Robert was already moving. Years of weekend boxing classes took over. A quick step forward, a solid push. The man stumbled back, his phone clattering to the floor. The screen lit up with messages. Police entering hotel. South exit blocked. All clear for arrest. Everything happened fast after that. The fake Andrew bolted for the door but found 2 hotel security guards waiting. Detective Chen had been busy. Lisa sank into a chair, tears streaming down her face as she scrolled through the evidence on her phone. I'm so sorry, she whispered, not looking up. I wanted to believe him. Even when things didn't add up, I wanted. Robert's phone buzzed again. Katie, parents stuck in traffic. Not there yet, thank God. Relief washed over him. They'd stopped it in time. Lisa's parents wouldn't lose their home. The fake Andrew wouldn't claim another victim. Footsteps pounded up the stairs, Detective Chen and her team arriving at last. As they led the handcuffed conman away, Robert finally looked at Lisa properly. She seemed smaller somehow, all her confidence stripped away by the truth. I ruined everything, she said quietly. Our marriage, our savings, my parents' trust. How can anyone ever forgive? Her words were cut off by shouts from the hallway. Her parents had arrived after all, rushing past the police tape. Their faces showed confusion, hurt, love, and fear, all the complicated emotions of a family dealing with betrayal and the chance for redemption. The box had been sitting in their storage room for months. Just some old papers, Lisa had said when she brought it home from her parents' house. Now, as Robert opened it, he understood why she'd hidden it away. Inside were photos from Lisa's high school years. He recognized her immediately, same bright smile, just younger. But when he found her yearbook and flipped to the section she'd mentioned so many times, his heart stopped. The real Andrew looked nothing like the man in Detective Chen's photos. He was shorter, with different colored eyes and a small scar above his eyebrow. How did I miss this? Robert whispered to the empty room. The answer was simple. He'd never asked to see old photos. The man pretending to be Andrew had counted on that, just like he counted on everyone's tendency to trust their memories more than their instincts. His phone buzzed. Detective Chen had sent an urgent update. Bank cameras caught them at 3 different locations today. They're moving money faster now. This isn't his usual pattern. Something's wrong. Robert kept digging through the box. Under a stack of birthday cards, he found Lisa's old diary. He hesitated before opening it, but lives were at stake. The pages told the story so different from what the fake Andrew had claimed. The real Andrew had broken up with Lisa before graduation. They hadn't been secret sweethearts torn apart by fate. They'd barely dated for 2 months. A small notebook fell from between the diary's pages. Robert recognized Lisa's handwriting, but these were recent entries. As he read, his blood ran cold. She'd been keeping track of lies, not her lies, but Andrew's. Little inconsistencies in his stories, details that didn't match up. She was starting to suspect something, but by then, she was already too deep. The latest entry was from just 3 days ago. Called the bank he said he worked at. No one's ever heard of him. What have I done? Robert's laptop pinged with an email from Detective Chen. More photos, more evidence. The fake Andrew had a pattern. Once his victims started asking questions, things would end badly, very badly. The diary's final page held something else, a receipt from the Golden Crown Hotel, dated yesterday. In the margins, Lisa had written an address and time. Meeting with investment manager, 7 p.m. tomorrow. Tomorrow was now today. Robert checked his watch, 6:15 p.m. The hotel was 30 minutes away. His phone rang. Lisa's sister Katie again. "Robert? Mom and Dad just got a call from Lisa. She was crying, said something about needing more money for just a few days. They're at the bank now, trying to take out another loan." The pieces clicked together. The fake Andrew was getting ready to disappear, but first he wanted one final score. Lisa's parents would lose everything, and Lisa, Robert remembered Detective Chen's words about the worse outcome from a previous case. He grabbed his keys, then stopped. On Lisa's bedside table, forgotten in her rush to leave, sat her favorite photo, the one from their honeymoon. They were laughing on a beach, young and in love, before lies and betrayal rewrote their story. He tucked the photo into his pocket. The drive to the hotel felt like hours. Every red light was an eternity. His phone kept buzzing. Detective Chen warning him not to do anything rash, Katie saying their parents were withdrawing their last savings, his lawyer advising against any contact. But all Robert could think about was that last diary entry. Lisa was waking up to the truth, but she was trapped. The fake Andrew had taken her money, her reputation, and soon he'd take her family's future too. After that, Robert pressed the accelerator harder. The hotel came into view, its bright signs cutting through the evening darkness. In the parking lot, he spotted Lisa's new car, the one she'd bought with their savings. Next to it was a sleek black vehicle he didn't recognize. The fake Andrew's latest purchase, probably. Robert parked and pulled out his phone. Detective Chen had texted again, "Don't go in. He's dangerous. Wait for us." Through the hotel's revolving doors, Robert could see the grand staircase leading to the meeting rooms. Somewhere up there, the fake Andrew was probably preparing for his final act of deception. And Lisa, was she still playing along, or had she finally seen through the lies? The hotel clock showed 6:55 p.m. In 5 minutes, Lisa's parents would lose everything. In 10 minutes, the fake Andrew would have what he wanted. And after that, Robert looked at the photo from his pocket, then at Detective Chen's message. He had to make a choice: wait for the authorities and risk losing everything, or walk up those stairs and face a dangerous con man who had destroyed countless lives. The clock struck 7 p.m. Robert took a deep breath and made his decision. The hotel's lights glowed in the distance. Robert pulled out his phone, thumb hovering over Detective Chen's number. In the end, it wasn't just about him and Lisa anymore. There were other victims, other lives at stake. The question was, could he stop it before someone else got hurt? The business card sat on Robert's desk for 3 days before he finally made the call. Detective Chen had been recommended by his lawyer. "She specializes in cases like yours," he'd said. Robert wasn't sure what that meant, but he needed answers. They met at a small office downtown. Detective Chen wasn't what he expected. No trench coat or stern expression, just a friendly woman with reading glasses and a desk covered in sticky notes. But when she started asking questions, Robert understood why she was the best. "Tell me about Andrew's job at the bank," she said, typing notes on her laptop. Robert blinked, confused. "I just know he was unhappy there." Detective Chen looked up. "According to his LinkedIn profile, he never worked at any bank. In fact, I can't find any regular employment history for him at all." The revelation hit Robert like a bucket of cold water. He'd taken Lisa's words about Andrew at face value, never questioning the story. Detective Chen pulled out a folder. "Your wife's ex-boyfriend Andrew Thompson doesn't exist, at least not the version she knows. The real Andrew Thompson died 15 years ago in a car accident." Over the next 2 hours, Detective Chen revealed a pattern that made Robert's stomach turn. The man Lisa knew as Andrew had used 5 different names in the past decade. In each case, the story was similar. He would reconnect with an old flame, usually after a class reunion or through social media. Romance would bloom. Money would disappear. "The good news," Detective Chen said, showing Robert a series of photos, "is that he's getting sloppy. These were taken last week at 3 different banks. Your wife is with him in 2 of them. They're still in the country." Robert stared at the images. Lisa looked different. Her hair was shorter, dyed a darker color. She was smiling in both photos, looking happy as she helped steal their future. Back home, Robert started his own digging. He remembered Lisa mentioning Andrew's social media marketing business. Sure enough, there was a website, professionally designed, filled with glowing testimonials. But when Robert ran the client logos through a reverse image search, they were all stolen from real companies. His phone buzzed, another text from Lisa's sister Katie. Mom and Dad are devastated. They actually took out a loan against their house because Lisa said you two were starting a business together. Please tell me you can help them. Robert's hands shook as he called his in-laws. The story got worse. Lisa had convinced them to mortgage their home of 30 years, promising huge returns from a guaranteed investment opportunity. They trusted her because she was their daughter, because she'd never lied to them before. Detective Chen's next update came with security camera footage from a luxury car dealership. Andrew was there, using yet another name, trying to sell a car that Robert recognized. It was the same model as the one Lisa had encouraged him to buy last year, saying it would help his image at work. The pieces were falling into place. He's not just a con man, Detective Chen explained, showing Robert more evidence. He's been doing this for years. He finds someone who trusts him, usually through an old connection, and spends months building a fake life around them. The bank job story, the business plans, even his childhood memories, they're all stolen from real people. The detective spread out more photos. These are his previous partners. 3 of them lost everything, not just their own money, but their family's savings too. One had to declare bankruptcy. Another, she paused, choosing her words carefully, had a much worse outcome. Robert thought about Lisa, about how excited she'd been when Andrew first contacted her. How she talked about their high school days, that young love, the way fate had brought them back together. Had any of it been real? Or was she just another character in Andrew's ongoing performance? As evening fell, Robert sat in their empty house, surrounded by evidence of a life that now seemed like a carefully constructed lie. His phone lit up with a notification. Someone had just tried to use their joint credit card at an airport hotel. Detective Chen's words rang in his ears. He never stays with one person for long. Once he has what he wants. Robert grabbed his keys. He knew that hotel. It was where he and Lisa had spent their first anniversary. Either she was getting careless or some part of her wanted to be found. Either way, he had a decision to make. The right thing would be to call Detective Chen immediately. But as he sat in his car, engine running, all he could think about was Lisa's parents, that house, their retirement, all gone because their daughter had fallen for a professional liar. The morning after discovering the note, Robert woke up on the living room couch, his phone dead beside him. He'd fallen asleep scrolling through old photos, trying to spot the moment when everything started going wrong. The house felt colder somehow, like it knew half its soul was missing. Making coffee felt strange. He'd always been the one to drink it black, while Lisa insisted on adding 3 spoons of sugar and that fancy creamer she loved. The creamer was still in the fridge, half empty. Such a normal thing, sitting there like nothing had changed. His phone came back to life with a flood of notifications. The bank wanted to speak with him urgently. His credit card company had frozen all accounts due to suspicious activity. There were missed calls from his mother-in-law. Apparently, Lisa had told her they were getting divorced, painting a completely different story. Walking through their bedroom to get dressed, Robert noticed more missing pieces. Her jewelry box was gone, but she'd left behind the pearl necklace he'd given her on their 5th anniversary. The closet was half empty, with some of his best shirts missing too. Even his expensive watch collection had been raided. At the bank, the truth got worse. Lisa hadn't just taken their shared money. She'd opened secret credit cards in his name months ago. The banker's face showed a mix of pity and suspicion as she walked him through the transactions. Large cash withdrawals, expensive hotel bookings, first-class plane tickets. Sir, these signatures, did you authorize these loans? Robert stared at the documents. His signature looked perfect, too perfect. She'd been practicing. Back home, his phone buzzed with a message from Tom, his best friend since college. Hey man, I need to tell you something. Can we meet? They met at their usual coffee shop, but it didn't feel usual at all. Tom couldn't look him in the eye at first. Finally, he spoke. I saw Lisa 3 weeks ago. She was with someone at that new restaurant downtown. I should have told you, but she said you guys were having problems, that you knew. The coffee turned bitter in Robert's mouth. More messages started coming in as word spread. Friends confessing they'd seen things, noticed things. Lisa had told different stories to different people. To some, Robert was controlling. To others, they were separating amicably. To her family, he was the villain who'd driven her away. Going through their home office that evening, Robert found more breadcrumbs of betrayal. Hidden receipts for rooms at the Golden Lake Hotel. A secret phone charger tucked behind the desk. A handwritten list of account passwords he'd never seen before. The most painful discovery came from their shared tablet. Lisa had forgotten to log out of her email. There it was, months of messages with her high school sweetheart Andrew. The man she'd dated before Robert. The man she'd claimed was just an old friend when he'd spotted his name on her phone last Christmas. The emails told the whole story. They'd reconnected at a class reunion 6 months ago. Andrew had been unhappy in his banking job, dreaming of starting his own business. Lisa had seen an opportunity. Together, they'd planned everything, the timing, the money, their new life abroad. Robert's phone rang again. This time it was Lisa's sister, Katie. Unlike the others, she was crying. "I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "I just found out what she did. That's not the sister I know. Mom and Dad are devastated. She tried to get them to transfer their retirement funds to her last week, saying it was for a surprise anniversary party for you." As the sun set on another day in his now empty house, Robert sat at the kitchen table with a legal pad, writing down everything he knew. The police would need details. The bank would need proof. His lawyer would need dates, times, amounts. But something wasn't adding up. Andrew had always been ambitious, but this level of planning seemed out of character. The careful timing, the complex financial fraud, the multiple layers of deception. Robert couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this story, something even Lisa might not know. The sun was setting when Robert pulled into his driveway, exhausted but satisfied after his business presentation. He'd nailed it, 3 months of hard work finally paying off. All he wanted now was to surprise his wife Lisa with the good news and maybe order their favorite takeout to celebrate. The house felt different the moment he stepped inside. Usually, there would be music playing from the kitchen or the sound of Lisa's favorite TV show, but today there was just silence. The kind of silence that makes your stomach twist without knowing why. "Lisa," he called out, his voice echoing through the empty rooms. No answer. He walked through the living room, noticing small things out of place. The family photos that usually sat on the mantel were gone. Lisa's favorite throw blanket, the soft blue one he'd given her last Christmas, was missing from the couch. The kitchen counter caught his eye. There, under the harsh fluorescent lights, lay Lisa's wedding ring. Next to it was a note, hastily written on the back of their monthly electric bill. Robert's hands trembled as he picked it up. "Goodbye. My ex is better than you in bed anyway." The words hit him like a punch to the gut. He had to read them 3 times before they made sense. 7 years of marriage reduced to one cruel sentence. That's when his phone started buzzing. At first, he ignored it, still staring at the note, trying to understand what was happening. But the buzzing wouldn't stop. When he finally looked at his screen, his blood ran cold. Bank fraud alerts, one after another. Checking account, unusual withdrawal of $15,000. Credit card alert, large purchase at luxury jewelry store. Savings account, transfer exceeding daily limit. His fingers fumbled as he opened his banking app. The joint account they'd used to save for their dream house, empty. The emergency fund they'd built together over years, gone. Their shared credit cards, maxed out. Robert sank into a kitchen chair, his presentation victory forgotten. The house felt massive and empty around him. Outside, a neighbor's dog barked, and kids played in the street, their laughter a strange contrast to his world crumbling inside these walls. He scrolled through his phone, looking for clues. No angry messages, no fights. Their last text exchange was from this morning. Lisa wishing him luck on his presentation, adding a heart emoji like she always did. As the reality of the situation slowly sank in, Robert noticed something else. The cabinet where they kept important documents was slightly open. Inside, the folder with their passports was empty. Lisa's passport, gone. The small fireproof safe where they kept emergency cash, cleaned out. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. This was planned. Every detail calculated. She had waited for his biggest presentation, knowing he wouldn't check his phone for hours. Knowing he'd be focused on impressing the board while she... His phone buzzed again. Another fraud alert. Robert barely noticed it this time. He was too busy remembering little moments from the past few months. Lisa's sudden interest in handling their finances, the way she'd encouraged him to focus completely on his presentation, the mysterious yoga classes that always ran late. All the pieces were there, he just hadn't wanted to see them. As night fell outside, Robert sat in his empty kitchen, the note still clutched in his hand, wondering how someone could share your bed, your dreams, your life for 7 years, and turn out to be a complete stranger.